Okay, so completely impromptu stream. Uh, Last night was kind of, no, I'll just say it was fucked completely. Uh, am I even broadcasting now? Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm sorry that I swear so much, but this is just getting irritating. Okay, well, it does show that I'm live, so I want to hear proof from my computer. Hello? Oh, great, no OSB's not. Hello? Ah. Yeah, so I'm hearing that recording, so my mouth isn't moving as much as it should be. The hell? Uh, Now it's working, sort of. Okay, I'm hearing echoes, so. Uh, yeah. Anyway, Cubs, since last night was such a severe pain in the ass. What? Oh, gonna drop. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and rebroadcast what I did last night. So I went through this morning and recorded the stories just so I could let you Cubs know that I was doing this. So, got two fairy tales. Don't know why I'm doing hand gestures because you can't see anything. But yeah, let me go ahead and get these going for you. So, yeah, here's the first one. A Legend of Knockmany by William Carleton. What Irish man, woman, or child has not heard of our renowned Iberian Hercules, the great and glorious Finn McCool? Not one, from Cape Clear to the Giant's Causeway, nor that back again to Cape Clear. And, by the way, speaking of the Giant's Causeway brings me at once to the beginning of my story. Well, it so happened that Finn and his gigantic relatives were all working on the causeway in order to make a bridge, or what was still better, a good stout pad road across to Scotland. When Finn, who was very fond of his wife Una, took it into his head that he should go home and see how the poor woman got on in his absence. To be sure, Finn was a true Irishman, and so the sorrow thing in life brought him back, only to see that she was snug and comfortable, and, above all things, that she got her rest well at night. For he knew that the poor woman, when he was with her, used to subject to nightly qualms and configurations that kept him a very anxious, decent man, striving to keep her up in good spirits and health that she had when they were first married. So, accordingly, he pulled up a fir tree, and after lopping off the roots and branches, made a walking stick of it, and set out on his way to Uno. Uno, or rather Finn, lived at this time at the very tip-top of Knockmany Hill, which faces a cousin of its own called Cullimore, that rises half hill, half mountain, up on the opposite side, east by south, as the sailors say when they wish to puzzle a landsman. Now, the truth is, for it must come out, that honest Finn's affection for his wife, though cordial enough in itself, was no matter or means for the real cause of his journey home. There was at that time another giant named Cullen. Some say he was Irish, some say he was Scotch, But whether Scotch or Irish, sorrow doubt but of it, he was a tiger. No other giant of the day could stand before him, and such was his strength that, when well vexed, he could give a stamp that shook the country around him. The fame and name of him went far and near, and nothing of the shape of a man, it was said, had any chance with him in a fight. Whether the story is true or not, I cannot say, but the report went that, by one blow of his fist, he flattened a thunderbolt and kept it in his pocket, in the shape of a pancake, to show all his enemies when they were about to fight him. Undoubtedly, he had given every giant in Ireland a considerable beating, barring Finn McCool himself, and he swore by solemn conscience of Moll Kelly's primer that he would never give rest, night or day, winter or summer, till he would serve Finn with the same sauce, if he could find him. Finn, however, who no doubt was a cock of the walk of his own dunghill, had a strong disinclination to meet the giant who could make a young earthquake or flatten a thunderbolt when he was angry, so accordingly he kept dodging about from place to place, not much to his credit as a Trojan. To be sure, whenever he happened to hard word that Cullen was on the scent of him. This, then, was the marrow of the whole movement, although he put it in his anxiety to see Una, and I'm not saying but there was some truth in that too. However, the short and long of it was, with reverence be it spoken, that he heard Cucullin was coming to the causeway to have a trial of strength him, and he was naturally enough seized, in consequence, with a very warm and sudden fit of affection for his wife, poor woman, who was delicate in her health and leading, besides, a very lonely and comfortable life, and, he assured them, in his absence. He accordingly pulled up a fir tree, as I said before, and having snagged it to a walking stick, set out affectionate travels to see his darling Una on the top of Knockmany, by the way. In truth, to state the suspicions of the country at the time, the people wondered very much why it was that Finn selected such a windy spot for the dwelling house, and even went so far to tell him as much. "What can you name, Mr. McCool," said they, "by pitching your tent upon the top of Knockmany? Where you never are without a breeze, night or day, winter or summer, and where you're often forced to take a nightcap without going to bed or turning up your little finger. Aye, where besides this, there is a sorrow want of water." "Why," said Finn, "ever since I was the height of a round tower, I was known to be fond of having a good prospect of my own, and where the Dickens, neighbours, could I find a better spot for a good prospect than the top of Knockmany? As for water, I'm sinking a pump, and, please goodness, as soon as the causeway's made, I intend to finish it." Now, this was more of Finn's philosophy, for the real state of the cause was that he pitched upon the top of Knockmany in order that he might be able to see Cucullin coming towards his house, and, of course, that he himself might go to look after the distant transactions in other parts of the country, rather than, well, what more matter. We do not wish to be too hard on Finn. All we have to say is that he wanted a spot from which to keep a sharp lookout, and, between ourselves, he did want it grievously, barring Sleeve Trube or Sleeve Donard, or its own cousin, Cullimore. He could not find a neater and more convenient situation for it in the sweet and sagacious province of Ulster. "God save all here," said Finn, good-humouredly, as he put an honest face into his own door. "Musha Finnavik, and you're welcome home to your own Una, you darling bully." Here followed a smack that is said to have made the waters of the lake in the bottom of the hill curl, as it were, with kindness and sympathy. "Faith," said Finn, "beautiful. And how are you, Una? And how did you sport your figure during my absence, my bilberry?" "Never a merrier, as bouncing a grass widow as ever there was in sweet Tyrone among the bushes." Finn gave a short, good-humored cough and laughed most heartily, to show her how much he was delighted that she made herself happy in his absence. "And what brought you home so soon, Finn?" she said. "You have warning," said Finn, putting in his answer in the proper way. "Never the thing but the purest of love and affection for yourself. Sure you know that's the truth anyhow, Una." Finn spent 2 or 3 happy days with Una and felt himself very comfortable, considering the dread that he had of Cullen. This, however, grew upon him so much that his wife could not but perceive something lay in his mind which kept him altogether to himself. Let the woman alone in the meantime, for ferreting or wheedling a secret out of a good man, when she wishes. Finn was proof of this. "It's this Cullen," said Finn. "That's troubling me. When the fellow gets angry, he begins to stamp. He'll shake you a whole townland, and it's well known that he can stop a thunderbolt, for he always carries one around him with him in the shape of a pancake, to show anyone that might misdoubt him." As he spoke, he clapped his thumb in his mouth, which always did what he wanted to with prophecy, or to know anything that happened in his absence. And the wife, who knew what it did, said, weeping, "Finn, darling, I hope you don't bite your thumb at me, dear." "No," said Finn. "I bite my thumb, Shirtha," he said. "Yes, Jewel, but take care you don't draw blood," she said. And Finn, "Don't, my bully, don't." "He's coming," said Finn. "I see him below Dungannon." "Thank goodness, dear. And who is it, Vic? Glory be to God." "That bastard Cullen," replied Finn. "And how to manage I don't know. If I run away I'm disgraced, and I know that sooner or later I must meet him, for my thumb tells me so." "When will he be here?" she said. "Tomorrow, about 2 o'clock," replied Finn with a groan. "Well, my bully, don't be cast down," said Una. "Depend on me, and maybe I'll bring you out better for the scrape than you ever would bring yourself, by your rule of thumb." This quieted Finn's heart very much, for he knew that Una was hand and glove with the fairies, and, indeed, to tell the truth, she was supposed to be a fairy herself. If she was, however, she must have been the kind-hearted one, for, by all accounts, she never did anything but good in the neighborhood. Now, it so happened that Una had a sister named Garana, living opposite them on the very top of Cacolmore, which I have mentioned already, and this Garana was quite powerful herself. The beautiful valley that lies between them is not more than 3 or 4 miles broad, so that a summoning's evening, Rana and Una were able to hold an agreeable conversation across it, from the top of one hilltop to the other. Upon this occasion, Una resolved to consult with her sister as what was best to be done in the difficulty that surrounded them. "Ganua," she said, "are you at home?" "No," said the other. "I'm picking bilberries in Althantwan, or in English, the Devil's Glen." "Well," said Una, "get up to the top of Cullimore, look about you, and tell us what you see." "Very well," cried Ganua, after a few minutes. "I'm there now." "What do you see?" asked the other. "Goodness be about us!" exclaimed Ganua. "I see the biggest giant that ever was known coming up from Dungannon." "Aye," said Una. "That's our difficulty. That giant is the great Cullen, and he's coming up now to Leather Finn. What's to be done?" "I'll call to him," she replied. "Come up to Cullimore and refresh himself. Maybe that will give you time to think of some plan and get yourselves out of the scrape." But she proceeded, "I'm short of butter, having it in the house with only half a dozen firkins, and as I'm to have a few giants and giantesses spend the evening with me, I'd feel thankful, if you'd throw me up 15 or 16 tubs. We're a great Leprechaun that you have, and you'll oblige me very much." "I'll do that with a heart and a half," replied Una. And indeed, Grandma, I feel myself under great obligations for you for your kindness in keeping him off of us, till we see what can be done, for what become of us if anything happened to poor Finn. She accordingly got the largest mescon of butter she had, which might be about the weight of a couple dozen millstones, so that you may have easily judged it by its size, and calling up to her sister, "Granua," she said, "are you ready? I'm going to throw it up the mescon, so be prepared to catch it." "I will," said the other. "A good throw, now, and take care it does not fall short." Una threw it, but in consequence of her anxiety about Finn and Cullen, she forgot to say the charm that was to send it up, so that instead of reaching Cullimore, as she expected, it fell about halfway between the two hills, at the edge of the broad bog near Augur. "My curse upon you!" she exclaimed. "You've disgraced me. Now I change you into grey stone. Lie there in testimony of what happened, and may evil betide the first living man that ever attempt to remove or injure you." And sure enough, there it lies this day, the mark of 4 fingers and a thumb imprinted on it, exactly as it came out of her hand. "Never mind," said Granua. "I must only do the best I can with Cullen. If all fad, I'll give him a cast of heather broth to keep the wind out of his stomach, or a panda of oak bark to draw it out of him. But above all things, think of some plan to get Finn out of the scrape he's in. Otherwise, he's a lost man. You know, he used to be as sharp and ready as wit as any of my own opinion, Una, is that it will go hard with you, or you'll outdo Cullen yet." Then she made a high smoke on top of the hill, and after which she put a finger in her mouth and gave 3 whistles. And by that Cullen knew that he was invited to Cullimore, for this was the way that the Irish long ago gave sign to all strangers and travellers to let them know that they were welcome to come and take share of whatever was going. In the meantime, Finn was very melancholy and did not know what to do or how to act. Cullen was an angry customer, no doubt, to mirror with, and, moreover, the idea of the confounded cake for him flattened the very heart within him. What chance could he have, strong and brave though he was, with a man who could then put a passion, walk the country into earthquakes and knock thunderbolts into pancakes? The thing was impossible, and Finn knew not what hand could turn him. Right or left, backward or forward, where to go, he could form no guess whatsoever. "Una," said he, "can you do nothing for me? Where's all your invention? Am I to be skivered like a rabbit before your eyes, and have my name disgraced forever in the sight of my tribe? And me, the best man among them. How am I to fight this mountain man, this huge cross between an earthquake and a thunderbolt, with a pancake in his pocket that was once—" "Be easy, Finn," replied Una. "Troth, I'm ashamed of you. Keep your toe in your pump, will you? Talking of pancakes, maybe it'll give a good idea when he brings with him, thunderbolt or otherwise. If I don't treat him as smart feeding as he's got as many a day, never trust Una again. Leave him to me, and do just as I bid you." This relieved Finn very much, for, after all, he had a great confidence in his wife, knowing, as he did, that she had got him out of many quandary before. The present, however, was the greatest of all, but still he began to get courage, and was able to eat his victuals as usual. Una then drew the 9 woolen threads of different colors, which she always did do to find out the best way of succeeding in anything of importance she went about doing. Then she plaited them into 3 plaits with 3 colors each, putting them on her right arm, around her heart, and the third around her right ankle, for then she knew that nothing could fail her with what she undertook. Having everything now prepared, she went round the neighbours and borrowed 21 iron girdles, which he took and kneaded into the hearts of 21 cakes of bread. And these she baked on the fire the usual way, setting them aside with the cupboard according to what they were done. She then put down a large pot of new milk, which she made into curds and whey, and gave Finn 2 instructions how to use the curds when Cullen should come. Having done this, she sat down quite contented, waiting her arrival of the day at 2 o'clock. That being the hour at which she expected, for Finn knew as much by sucking of his thumb. Now this was a curious property of Finn's thumb, but notwithstanding all the knowledge and logic he used to suck out of it, it could never have stood to him were it not for the wit of his wife. In this very thing, moreover, he was very much resembling his great foe Cullen, for it was well known that the huge strength he possessed all lay in the middle finger of his right hand, and that if he happened to, by mischance, lose it, he was no more, notwithstanding his bulk, a common man. At length, the next day, he was seen coming across the valley, and Una knew that it was time to commence operations. She immediately made a cradle, and desired Finn to lie down in it, and cover himself with the clothes. "You must pass for your own child," said she. "Just lie there snug, and say nothing, but be guided by me." This, to be sure, was wormwood to Finn. Going into the cradle in such a cowardly manner. But he knew Una well, and finding that he had nothing else to do for it, his very rueful face gathered him into it and laid snug as she desired him. About 2 o'clock, as he had expected, Cullen came in. "God save all here," he said. "Is this where the great Finn McCool lives?" "Indeed it is, honest man," replied Una. "God save you kindly. Won't you be sitting?" "Thank you, ma'am," says he, sitting down. "You're Miss McCool, I suppose?" "I am," said she, "and I have no reason, I hope, to be ashamed of my husband." "No," said the other. "He has the name of being the strongest and bravest man in Ireland, but for that there's a man not far from you that's very desirous in taking a shake at him. Is he home?" "No." She replied. "If ever a man left his house in a fury, he did. It appears that someone told him a big basthoon of a giant called Cullen was being down the causeway to look for him, and so he set out there to try to see if he could catch him. Troth, I hope for the poor giant's sake he won't meet with him, for if he does, Finn will make paste of him at once." "Well," said the other, "I am Cullen, and I have been seeking him these 12 months, but he always kept clear of me, and I will never rest night or day until I lay my hands on him." At this Una set up a loud laugh, the great contempt, by the way, and looked at him as if only a mere handful of a man. "Did you ever see Finn?" said she, changing her manner all at once. "How could I?" said he. "He always took care to keep his distance." "I thought so," she replied. "I judged as much. If you were to take my advice, you poor-looking creature, you'll pray night and day that you never see him, for I tell you it will be the black day for you when you do. But in the meantime, you perceive that the wind's on the door, and as Finn himself is home, maybe you'd be civil to turn the house, for it's always what Finn does when he's here." This was a startler even for Cullen. He got up, however, and after pulling his middle finger in the right hand until it cracked 3 times, he went outside, and getting his arms around the house, completely turned it as if she had wished. When Finn saw this, he felt a certain description of moisture, which shall be nameless, oozing through every pore of his skin. But Una, depending upon her woman's wit, felt not a whit daunted. "Ah, then," she said, "as you are so civil, maybe you'll do another obliging turn for us, as Finn's not here to do it himself. You see, after this long stretch of dry weather we've had, we feel very badly off for want of water. Now, Finn says there's a fine spring, well, somewhere under the rocks behind the hill here. below. If it was his intention to pull them asunder, but having heard of you, he left the place in such a fury that never thought of it. Now, if you try it out, I'd troth feel my kindness. Then she brought Cullen down to see the place, which was then at all one solid rock. After looking at it for some time, he cracked his right middle finger 9 times, stooped down and tore a cleft about 400 feet deep and a quarter of a mile in length, which has since been christened by the name of Lumford's Glen. This feat nearly threw Una off her guard, but what won't a woman's sagacity and presence of mind accomplish? You will now come in, said she. I need a bit of humble fare that what we can give you. Finn, even although he and you are enemies, would scorn not to treat you kindly in his own house, and indeed, if I didn't do it even in his absence, he would not be pleased with me. She accordingly brought him in, placing half a dozen of the cakes we spoke of before, together with a can or two of butter, a side of boiled bacon, and a stack of cabbage. She desired him to help himself, for this, be it known, was long before the invention of potatoes. Cullen, who, by the way, was a glutton as well as a hero, put one of the cakes in his mouth to take a huge whack out of it, and both Finn and Una were stunned with the noise that resembled something between a growl and a yell. "Blood and fury!" he shouted. "How is this? Here are 2 of my teeth out. What kind of bread is this you gave me?" "What's the matter?" said Una coolly. "Matter?" shouted out the other again. "Why, there are 2 of my best teeth, and my head are gone." "Why," said she, "that's Finn's bread, the only bread he ever eats at home. But, indeed, I forgot to tell you that nobody can eat it but himself and the child in the cradle there. I thought, however, as you were reported to be a rather stout little fellow by your size, you might be able to manage it. But I do not wish to affront a man that thinks himself able to fight Finn. Here's another cake. Maybe it's not so hard as that." Cullen, at the moment, was not only very hungry, but ravenous, so accordingly he made fresh set of the second cake, and immediately another yell was heard twice as loud as the first. "Thunder and giblets!" he roared. "Take your bread out of this, or I will not have tooth left in my head. There's another pair of them gone." "Well, honest man," replied Una, "if you're not able to eat the bread, say so quietly. I don't want you waking the child in the cradle there." "There, now he's awake upon me." Finn now gave a squeal that startled the giant, coming from such a youngster as he was represented to be. "Mother," said he, "I'm hungry. Get me something to eat." Anna went over and putting into his hand a cake that had no griddle in it. Finn, whose appetite in the meantime was sharpened by what he saw going forward, soon made it disappear. Cullen was thunderstruck, and secretly thanked his stars that he had the good fortune to miss meeting Finn, for, as he said himself, I'd have no chance with a man who could eat such bread as this, and even a son who's but in the cradle can munch before my eyes. "I'd like to take a glimpse of the lad that cradle," he said to Una, "for I can tell you that the infant who can manage that nutrient is no joke to look at, or feed a scarce summer." "With all the veins of my heart," replied Una. "Get up, Acushla, and show this decent little man something that won't be unworthy of your father, Finn McCool." Finn, who was dressed for the occasion as much a little boy as possible, got up, bringing Cullen out. "Are you strong?" said he. "Thunder and hounds!" exclaimed the other. "What a voice in such a small chap!" "Are you strong?" said Finn again. "Are you able to squeeze water out of that white stone?" he asked, putting in one into Cullen's hand. The latter squeezed and squeezed the stone, but put no purpose. He might pull the rocks of Lumford Glen asunder and flatten a thunderbolt, but to squeeze water out of a white stone was beyond his strength. Finn eyed him with great contempt, as he kept straining and squeezing and squeezing and straining, till he got black in the face with the efforts. "Ah, you're a poor creature," said Finn. "You, a giant. Give me the stone here, and I'll show you what Finn's little son can do. You may judge, of course, what my daddy himself." Finn took the stone, and slyly exchanging it for the curds, squeezed the latter until the whey was clear as water. It was a little slower from his hand. "Now I'll go in," he said, "to my cradle, for I'd lose the scorn of time with anyone who's not able to eat my daddy's bread or squeeze water from a stone. But, Dad, you had better be off this before he comes back, for if he catches you, it's a flummery you'll have in 2 minutes." Cullen, seeing what he had seen, was the same opinion himself. His knees knocked together with the terror of Finn's return, and accordingly hastened and bid Una's farewell, and to assure her that from that day out he never wished to hear of, much less see, her husband. "I admit fairly that I'm not a match for him," said he. "Strong as I am, tell him I will avoid him as I would the plague, and that I will make myself scarce in this part of the country for while I live." Finn, in the meantime, had gone into the cradle, where he lay very quietly, his heart at mouth, delight that Cullen, who was about to take his departure, without discovering the tricks that had been played upon him. "It's so well for you," said Una, "that he doesn't happen to be here, for it's nothing but hawk's meat if you make of you." "I know that," says Cullen. "Devil a thing else he'd make of me. But before I go, will you let me feel what kind of teeth they are in that brittle bread like that?" He pointed as he spoke. "With all pleasure in life," said she. "Only as they're far back in his head, you must put your finger in a good way." Cullen was surprised to find such a powerful set of grinders in one so young, but he was still much more on the finding when he took his hand from Finn's mouth, that he left the very finger upon which the whole strength depended, behind him. He gave one loud groan, then fell down once with terror and weakness. This was all Finn wanted, who now knew that his most powerful and bitterest enemy was completely at his mercy. He instantly started out of the cradle, and with a few minutes of the great Cullen sat so much thinks the time of terror of him that his followers lay a corpse before him. Thus did Finn, through the wit and invention of Una, his wife, succeed in overcoming his enemy by stratagem, which he would have never done by force. Thus also it proved that women, if they bring us into any unpleasant scrape, can sometimes succeed in getting us out of others that are as bad. There we go. So that was Legend of um, Many Knock Many. Anyway, that was the first one that I did last night. I did. Hold on. Better? Ah, okay. So I did that one last night first, and I took a little break, and then I went into the next one, which was the Leprechaun. So let's
The
get into the
Leprechaun,
Leprechaun, shall we?
or Fairy Shoemaker,
Cool.
by William Allingham.
Little cowboy, what have you heard up on the lonely Rath's green mound? Only the plaint of yellow birds sighing in sultry fields abound. Chicory, 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 chee. Only the grasshopper and the bee. Tip tap, rip rap, tick a tack too. Scarlet leather sewn together, this will make a shoe. Left, right, pull it tight, summer days are warm. Underground in winter, laughing at the storm. Lay your ear close to the hill. Do you not catch the tiny clamor? busy click of an elven hammer. Voice of the leprechaun singing shrill as he merrily plies his trade. He's a span, a quarter in height. Get him in your sight, hold him tight, and you're a made man. You watch your cattle the summer day, step on potatoes, sleep in the hay. How would you like to roll in your carriage? Look for a duchess's daughter in marriage. Seize the shoemaker, then you may. Big boots a hunting, sandals in the hall, white for a wedding feast, pink for a ball. This way, that way, so we make a shoe, getting rich every sitch, tic-tac-toe. 99 treasure crocks hath this keen miser fairy. Hidden mountains, woods, and rocks, ruin and round tower, cave and rath. And here the Comortons build, from times of old, guarded by him, each of them filled to the brim with gold. I caught him at work one day myself, in a castle ditch where foxglove grows. A wrinkled, wizened, and bearded elf, spectacles stuck on his pointed nose, silver buckles on his hose, a leather apron, shoe in his lap, rip-rap, tip-tap, tack-tack-too. A grasshopper on my cap, away the moth flew. Buskins for a fairy prince, brooks for his son. Pay me well, when the job is done. The rogue was mine, beyond a doubt. I stared at him. He stared at me. Servant, sir, humph, says he, and pulled a snuff box out. He took a long pinch and looked better pleased. The queer little leprechaun offered me the box with a whimsical grace. Poof! He flung the dust in my face, and when I sneezed, he was gone. Yeah, so that was pretty much it. I just did the story and the poem. Ah, this YouTube studio not cooperating with me. Yeah. Hi there. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I did for the day. So, yeah, really gotta fix my eyes. Anyway, I guess I'm looking down. Let's keep rolling back. Anyway, let's get back over here. That's pretty much all I was gonna do. So, uh, you know what? Screw it. Let's raid someone. And by someone, I mean, you know. So, so that was French, my recreation for the night. So, I hope you enjoyed it. If not, whatever. I really do. I need to fix my camera a lot. Yeah, let's just whatever. Let's go. Have a good day, chat.